They said you were too late, that the doors had already closed, that the race had already been run. They laughed at the empty resume, at the birthdays spent in silence, at the years that didn't look impressive on timelines. But here's what they never understood. Late is not failure. Late is leverage, because the ones who arrive last do not chase illusions. They walk in after the illusions have died. They walk in when the noise has faded, and all that remains is truth. Culture whispers one message louder than all others: you should have figured it out by now. It disguises this whisper as truth, and millions believe it. If you haven't made it by 25, you're behind. If you're still searching by 35, you're delusional. If you're reinventing yourself at 45, it's too late. But who decided this? Who told us that life peaks in youth? Who claimed that our best ideas must come before we even finish maturing? It wasn't biology. It wasn't wisdom. It was marketing. Youth sells urgency, sells fear, sells, sell. We were programmed: rush, sprint, arrive before you're ready, or be forgotten. But here's the truth: rushing makes you fragile. Silence makes you strong. Look at the ones who won early. The prodigies, the child stars, the viral sensations. Most of them burned bright, then vanished, not because they lacked talent, but because they mistook applause for a foundation. Noise does not last. Clarity does not endure. Wisdom does end. Wisdom is not born in haste. It is forged in the seasons everyone else calls too late. The years of silence, the years of obscurity, the years no one claps for you. Arriving late gives you 3 unfair advantages. 1. Selection. You choose better games. You've seen enough to know what's hollow, while others chase every shiny trend. You cut through illusions and aim only at what matters. 2. Clarity. You waste less motion. Every step is deliberate, weighted, intentional. No panic, no scramble, no desperate need to prove yourself every hour. 3. Immunity. You stop asking permission. You've lived long enough to know permission never comes. So you build without waiting. You move without begging. You arrive without announcing. That is why late bloomers are dangerous, because by the time they show up, they are already unshakable. The world measures success with clocks, but clocks don't measure awareness. Awareness comes with scars, with silence, with patterns repeated until they break. The paradox is simple. The early shine quickly, but fade quickly. The late walk slowly, but when they arrive, they cannot be removed. The system cannot admit this. If too many people discovered that slowness creates depth, the culture of urgency would collapse. So, patience was branded as weakness. Silence was branded as failure. Wisdom was branded as irrelevance. But branding is not truth. Truth is what remains when illusions burn away. Colonel Sanders broke at 65, laughed at more than 1,000 times, only to build an empire when the world called him finished. Vera Wang, invisible until 40, dismissed as late, then turned decades of observation into vision that redefined an entire industry. Toni Morrison, her first novel published at 39, her Nobel Prize. Decades later, these are not exceptions. They are reminders that obscurity is not wasted time. It is construction time. The waiting was the weapon, because what takes longer to build takes longer to break. Obscurity is not punishment. It is the forge. Each rejection, a hammer strike. Each silence, a cooling season. Each failure, a fire reheating the steel. And what emerges is not fragile, it is tempered. Not shiny and brittle, but sharp and unbreakable. That is why, when late bloomers arrive, the world cannot stop them, because they were not trained in applause. They were trained in obscurity. Napoleon Hill called it auto-suggestion. Repeat a thought long enough, and it becomes law inside you. The world repeats, "You're too late," until you believe it. But that voice is not truth. It is programming, residue of a culture addicted to youth and urgency. The late bloomer's task is simple. Flip the script. Replace the whisper of too late with a command of precisely on time. Say it daily, even when it feels fake. Especially when it feels fake. Because eventually, the old script falls silent, and the new one takes command. But mantras are not enough. Environment always beats willpower. If you return every night to the same voices of decay, you will sink. Not because you are weak, but because repetition carves stone. That's why you must become the gatekeeper of your energy. Silence what poisons, protect what builds. This is not cruelty, it is survival, because the forge that made you strong is useless if you return every night to the swamp. Carl Jung called it the death of the persona. The masks you once wore kept you safe, but when you grip them too tightly, they become prisons. Growth feels like grief, because it is grief. You are burying old versions of yourself, but that burial is not betrayal. It is loyalty to your future. The person you were cannot carry you where you are going. So Let the old self die, and let the authentic self, the one beneath the noise, finally breathe. There will be a season when you feel invisible, when your old roles no longer fit, and the new ones have not yet arrived. This is not failure. It is gestation, the seed beneath the soil, the cocoon before the wings, the tomb before the resurrection. Silence is not death. It is incubation. Do not fear the invisible season, because every rebirth begins in shadows, and then, without warning, you will emerge, not with noise, but with presence, not with desperation, but with permanence. The world will not recognize you because you are no longer the person they underestimated. You rebuilt in silence. You returned unrecognizable. So, if no one sees you now, good. If they call you late, good. If they laugh, good, because late is not behind. Late is leverage, and when you arrive, you will not need to explain. They will ask, how? And the answer will be simple. You were not late. You were becoming.